What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Active Eye Podcast. I'm Dr. Sean Pastuch. I'm your host, and today we're joined by Joelle Cavanero. You might know her on Instagram as Joelle Samantha. We're talking about things like how to know when it's time for you to leave your safe, cushy, comfortable job for the uncertain future of a potential career that you would love. After this episode's over, if you want, head to our website, check out the show notes, go to the Instagram page, wherever you want to go. We're going to make it easy for you. Joelle actually created a PDF for you to make decisions about whether or not the job that you're at is the one that you should be at, or if you should be thinking about how to transition out to doing something on your own. I think you guys will love it. It's going to make things really easy for you. And this show is going to be full of nuggets about how Joelle went from being a student who was just kind of always fit looking to being somebody who actually is healthy, is fit, and is now coaching people from all around the world on how to do it for themselves. You're going to really like this. Here we go. Joelle Cavanero, if they're looking for you on Instagram, Joelle Samantha.
Yep.
Welcome to the Active Life Podcast.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
It's my pleasure. I appreciate you coming on. I was just telling you that I've actually been following you since you had long hair, and I think maybe you were still a teacher at that time.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. So I was teaching for 4 years, and before that I was in school finishing up my exercise science master's. But I had long hair until a little over a year ago. So it was like September 2018-ish. Okay. I think I cut it, if we want to talk timeline.
Was it like, this is my year, hair's off?
I think it was kind of just like I was ready for a change. I've had long curly hair my entire life. And it was just, I mean, I'm blonde. So when you add enough blonde over the years, it really just kind of destroys your hair. And I was like, I need a change. My hair is dead. New year, new me. I don't know. And I just cut it. And now I'm living the short hair life and got it straightened and the whole shebang. So perfect. I don't know, just a new phase of life.
All right. Well, if you guys are listening to this, don't worry. We're not going to go down the Pantene Pro V route. This is not going to be a shampoo commercial. I will not share my hair care routine with you.
Yeah,
that's not what we're doing. But I would love for you to introduce yourself to our audience a little bit, because I know a fair amount about you. They might not. And I would love for them to learn about what you're doing and where you come from, so that when we start talking about how you did it, it provides them with some perspective.
Absolutely. Cool. So I am Joelle. I'm 27. I live in New York City with my husband and my really, really adorable puppy. And I have a background in health education and physical education, which was what prompted my, teaching. So I was a high school health and phys ed teacher for 4 years. But before I even got that job, I finished my undergrad in health and PE, and I just loved exercise science. I took one undergrad class for my health and phys ed degree in Phys, and everyone bombed that class, and I got an A in it, and I was like, this is my shit. Like, I like this. I like this. And I've just always loved exercise. I grew up an athlete. I was a cross-country runner.
Me too.
If you want to call that an athlete.
Look, I did it too. I was all conference.
Yep,
definitely an athlete.
Yep, my husband too. And so I ran cross country. I also played lacrosse. I was a gymnast, and I was one of those really annoying people that your typical high school kid that ate whatever the hell they wanted and never gained weight, and people were always like, "It's gonna catch up with you one day," and I'm like, "Yeah, okay, Tina." Right. All right. I'll believe it when I see it. And so I ate like a total dirtbag. And, but it worked. I was running, at least 10 miles every day. I burned, through everything that I ate. And then I went to college and I kept those same eating habits and I stopped running cross country.
Where'd you go to college?
So my first 2 years, I went away to school in Pennsylvania at a small school called Lock Haven. Okay. And then after those 2 years, I transferred back home to Adelphi on Long Island in Garden City. Yeah. So, and then I stayed at Adelphi to do my master's. So
my sister too.
Oh yeah.
And she coached lacrosse there.
My dad too. Oh, no way.
Yeah.
I probably know. I don't think I know the coach, but I probably know some of the girls that she's coached from.
That's likely.
From health and phys ed. Yeah. So I went to school there. Did health and PE, transferred home. Amongst all of that, there was an eating disorder in there, which was part of my transferring home.
Tina got to you?
Tina did it.
That fucking bitch.
Well, so just to rewind a little bit, I went to college. I kept those same eating habits. and I wasn't running cross country. I'd go to the gym here and there. When I'd go to the gym, I'd go, I could walk into the gym, run 8 miles on a treadmill and leave, and like do that a few times a week. That was my working out. Never really lifted weights. And I gained 30 pounds my freshman year. And that, like, I know
You're only
people
supposed to gain 15.
Yeah, I know. I'm an overachiever. What can I say? So I know that, so many people are like, oh, you the freshman 15, right? From drinking. Mine was like not even from drinking. It was just like, I really love food. And, you take me to college dining halls that are open, all hours of the day, and breakfast, lunch, and dinner 3 times a day. And you're like, okay, well, I'm eating double my body weight in cereal and brownies. So I gained a bunch of weight my freshman year. I went home for summer, and I don't think I had even realized that I gained the weight. I guess maybe I carried it well. And I just remember I got home and my dad was like, what happened, Joelle? I was like, what do you mean what happened? And then he's like, well, like you've always been very fit and you've been an athlete. And my dad was a bodybuilder. And so I grew up watching him compete in shows and diet, and I, came from a very healthy household. And my dad would say, he'd get home from work sometimes and he'd see me like crushing a box of Cheez-Its, and he'd be like, you just got home from a 12-mile practice. Did you eat any protein today? And he'd be like, tell me what you ate today. I'm like, I had Lucky Charms for breakfast. For lunch at school, I had a bag of popcorn, 2 chocolate chip cookies, and a plate of French fries. And now I just got home from practice and I had a box of Cheez-Its. And he'd be like, Joelle, there's no protein in that. And I remember vividly looking at the box of Cheez-Its. It was like cheddar jack Cheez-Its. And I turned it over and it was like 2 grams of protein per serving. And I was like, Dad, I ate the whole box. That's like 10 grams of protein in this. And I was like convinced. But when you're young and you don't know literally anything about nutrition, you're like, oh, what's so bad about not having enough protein or not having enough sugar or having too much sugar or whatever. And so that summer, I really was like, okay, I want to get back to things. Like, some of my clothes aren't really fitting me. I want to feel fit again. Like, I was always that kid that just like had abs and didn't really do anything except run. So I was just like, all right, I want to get back to that. And so I started going to the gym more, started going to the gym with my dad again. And then my dad was diagnosed with cancer that summer. And so exercise for me, just like running always was. Like, running was that thing that, like, if I was pissed off, I went for a run. If I was angry, I went for a run. If I was sad, I went for a run. Like, it was that thing that it was my therapy. It was that thing that always cleared my head. And so when my dad got sick, that became my thing again.
Running or going to the gym?
Just going to the gym. And I loved cardio by nature as an endurance athlete. So I'd sometimes just go and I'd get on the stairs for an hour or I'd spin for an hour. And so that weight started to come off. And then somewhere along the way, I fell into, like, this was like pre-Instagram, or like the very, very beginning of Instagram, really when Pinterest was like a big thing. And this was around 2011, 2012, just to kind of give everyone a timeline. So before we had this like massive fitness community on Instagram, or before online coaches or anything like that. And so I, somewhere along the way, started, seeing on Pinterest, or I think it really was all from Pinterest, these like ripped girls. And I was like, I want to look like that. Like, I want abs. I want to be lean like that. Like, I've always been skinny, but like, I want to look fit now. And so I went through this phase of like, I want to be a bodybuilder. Like, I want to. And so anyway, to fast forward all of this, because this story could take a year to tell, I lost all of that weight and then some. And this is something that I'm really adamant about teaching people, is that there's not just you're cutting or you're bulking. There's an in-between phase. There's a maintenance phase where most people should be living at. But when you are 18, 19 years old and you're just trying to get fit, trying to get abs, and you take a 19-year-old kid and Google like how to get abs by summer, or how to get abs in 6 weeks, or something stupid like that, you find all sorts of garbage of don't eat carbs, don't eat fat, don't eat sugar.
Well, and that 19-year-old kid becomes 35.
Yeah.
Becomes 40, 45. And they're looking for the same stuff.
And they're still believing,
yes,
right, the same things, because we all want quick fixes, right? We live in this generation of instant gratification where we want results right away. And so we want quick fixes, and we would rather take a pill than do the hard work. And I was the same way at that age. Like, I just wanted to do what was quick. I didn't care. Oh, it's bad for my health. Like, okay. And truth be told, I was trying to do things that I thought were good for me. I never had the intention of like, I just want to get skinnier and skinnier and skinnier. Like, I wanted to lose the weight, and then I wanted to compete in bodybuilding. Like, I was trying to get jacked. I was never trying to get skinny, quote unquote. Yeah. But I just didn't know. And so I lost that weight just from changing my eating habits. I really can't even tell you anything that I did specifically to lose the initial weight. It was just, I was moving more, and I was making better food choices. I wasn't, hammering down cereal in the morning. I'd have an omelet in the morning instead. And just, small switches here and there.
Well, so you get yourself to a place where, okay, you're at least in control of your own physique as far as you thought.
Right.
Are you in control of your physique, or is your physique in control of you? A totally different conversation we could have about eating disorders forever.
Yeah.
When did you become a health and phys ed teacher?
So all of this weight loss journey and wanting to be a bodybuilder journey and eating disorder journey was while I was in school for teaching.
While you were in school to learn how to teach.
So this was while I was in college for health and phys ed.
So you were at Adelphi this time.
So the beginning of the eating disorder was at my second year away in Pennsylvania.
Got it.
And then it pretty much became like full-fledged eating disorder. And my parents were like, listen, like you're not doing great on your own. Like, you got to come home. And luckily I have super, super supportive parents. And I was also still really naive, where I was like, you don't know what you're talking about. Like, I'm the one with abs. So who's the one doing the right thing here? Like, obviously, you get this cockiness to you when you are in shape, or when you get lean like that, where you think you know better than everybody else. And truth is, like, I thought I was doing all the right things. I thought that I was being super healthy by not eating carbs, or being super healthy by not eating sugar and only having egg whites instead of eggs. And by the amount of exercise that I was doing, I truly believed like I was the epitome of health.
Yeah, well, because it goes to the problem.
Right.
That is, people look at the outcome, and they're like, okay, well, if I want to look like that, it doesn't matter how I get there. That is what healthy looks like.
Right.
I have a friend of mine, I don't know if you know who Rachel Balkovec is, but she's a strength and conditioning, was a strength and conditioning coach for the Houston Astros. And now she's going to be one of the hitting coaches for the New York Yankees.
Cool.
Which is really cool.
Yeah.
And she talked
female, even better. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. Well, she was the first female in professional sports. When we talked about how she praises and criticizes her athletes, one of the things she described was, I don't congratulate a guy for running a fast 60 because he was born fast. I congratulate a guy for doing the work that it took to be able to run a fast 60, because that's what's going to carry over.
Bingo.
And that's what you're describing. Like, who cares if he can run a fast 60?
Yeah.
If you just do it fast.
Right. And that's the same thing that I really talk about with my clients, and we'll get into kind of my online coaching here too. But when my clients do weekly check-ins with me, my one-on-one coaching clients, we do weekly check-ins. They send in some update forms, and I record voice memos back to them, kind of walking them through, how that week went. And, I have clients that they have to list their strengths of the week and their struggles of the week and what they can do to improve upon those struggles. And I strictly ask them on their strengths to identify non-scale victories.
What does that mean? Oh, physical scale.
Yes, non-physical scale, because otherwise what happens is I get a client and their win of the week is, I'm down 2 pounds this week. And I will never get on there and congratulate you for losing 2 pounds ever. What I will come on there and do is praise you for the habits and the behaviors that you've changed that elicited that fat loss. It's not the fat loss that's the win. It's the behavior changes that you've made, and the fat loss is the plus. The fat loss is the result of the changes that you've made. And so I love that you mentioned that, of like, you're not rewarding the result, you're rewarding the behavior that got you to that result.
Well, because that's what's repeatable.
Right.
But if it's just result, it's like, okay,
right,
I don't know how many times I can do this.
Yeah. You need to be behavior driven and not result driven.
Yeah. I mean, I'll be straight up with you right now. I'm in freshman year of college, Joelle phase, in that, like, I used to work out 2 hours a day.
Yeah.
Totally unnecessary.
Same.
And I was like, 6-pack, I looked good. I weighed 145, 150
Yeah.
pounds as a full grown adult.
Right.
So it wasn't that hard
Lean.
to have a six pack. And now I don't work out nearly as often.
Right.
I have the exact same eating habits. And I'm like, I told my wife this in the kitchen. I'm like, I got to change something about the way I'm eating.
Things are changing. Yes. My body's changing.
I'm going to avoid swinging all the way to eating disorder.
Yeah.
But it happens.
Right.
You have to be conscious of the habits that you have.
Yeah.
So people don't know this if they don't live in New York. And I don't think all of our listeners are in New York. Getting a job as a phys ed teacher in New York, keep in mind, guys, there's 2 to 4 phys ed teachers in a school.
Yeah.
There's,
depending on the school. Yeah.
Yeah, there could be 12 science teachers.
Right.
There could be 12 social studies teachers. So there might be 2 to 4 phys ed teachers in a school. And everybody who has a phys ed job, if you can picture the old school phys ed teacher rolling the ball out and saying, go play, that's because when people have a phys ed job, they keep it forever.
Yep.
Forever.
Yep.
And they don't want
They're hard
to
to come by because people don't retire. Like you don't
Yeah.
leave. Once you get that job, you're locked in.
Because it's cush.
Yeah.
You get to wear sweatpants
Yeah.
to work
Yeah.
and you get benefits, you get full-time
Yeah.
pay, you get pension. It's amazing.
Right.
My sister is a phenomenal phys ed teacher.
Yeah.
Phenomenal. And she's been looking for a phys ed job full-time for like a decade. A decade.
Yeah.
And every time that there's one that comes up, it's like she's been in the school for 3 years, but the superintendent's like nephew needs a job.
Someone
so
knew
they get
someone.
It.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's all
And look,
it's a political game.
And I would tell people 100%, this is not a podcast about my sister either, but she's awesome.
Yeah.
It's not like, I'm like, oh yeah, my sister's great.
Right,
Like she's,
right.
the newspaper constantly comes and covers her classes because she's doing such innovative
that's
things.
amazing.
So anyway, you left that.
I wonder if she speaks at any of like the phys ed conferences that I've
She
gone
doesn't
to.
because she'll listen to this.
Yeah.
She probably doesn't have the confidence to put herself out there to do it yet.
We gotta get you up there, girlfriend.
Because she's not full time.
Yeah.
She's like, what phys
Gotcha.
ed teacher's going to listen to me? I'm not even full time.
Doesn't mean you don't know your shit.
And she definitely knows her shit.
That's awesome.
So you left that.
Yeah.
I mean, that is the job that like I
did.
just said, my sister's been waiting a decade.
It's a fantastic job. I would never steer anyone away from teaching. I truly loved teaching. And that was what was so hard for me about leaving. And that's what I really, really struggled with because I feel really lucky and really blessed to have 2 quote unquote jobs that I'm extremely passionate about. And I'm extremely passionate about teaching. I actually happen to love the health teaching far more than the phys ed teaching.
Penis, vagina, vagina.
Exactly. Sex, drugs, rock and roll is what I tell everybody. So I loved teaching high school health. I mean, I had a ball. It was an inner city New York school. So like you just get all sorts of kids from all different walks of life. And it was a lot of fun. Like, I mean, I really, really had a blast and you learn so much about kids and teenagers. And it's actually kind of funny. Like I thought when I started there, I would love the freshmen because they'd be like young and moldable. I freaking hated the freshmen and I loved my seniors. I thought the seniors were going to be like too damn cool for me, like too cool for school, but they were so awesome because they were like the kids you could have a real conversation with and the kids that like really looked up to you. And it was more so like the freshmen that thought they were too cool from you because they just came from 8th grade thinking they're like hot shit.
You're like, shut up, you're stupid.
Yeah. So I loved my seniors. And so when I really started to feel like I wasn't sure if I could be all in on teaching anymore, was when I also started to just take more online clients and I started to realize how much I really, really loved helping people that wanted to be helped.
All right, so let's back up there a little bit.
Yeah.
Because there's something that we missed.
Okay.
When did you start taking online clients? Like,
Okay.
You're a health teacher.
We missed a
and
good chunk.
You're a health and phys ed teacher.
Yeah.
At what point are you like, you know what? I have skills that are transferable outside of the classroom, and I'm going to be able to find people on this invisible internet thing who are going to pay me for a service.
Yeah. So that's a really good point. I'm glad you brought us back to that.
Thank you.
So amongst this eating disorder, which at the time I would have never called an eating disorder. Now looking back, I'm like, you were fucked up, Joelle. But then I just thought I was, being healthy, trying to be a bodybuilder. There was and I had Instagram at this time and it was growing, not because I was trying to, like, this wasn't even an age where like people were trying to get followers on Instagram. Like I used my Instagram, and if you go be like super creepy stalkerish and you scroll way, 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 way back in my Instagram, you'll see that like I posted an ab workout. I posted a picture of an apple. I posted a picture of my protein shake that day. Like it was really just my own little accountability journal. And the more I shared, the more people followed. Like people would be like, hey, can you post an ab workout? Hey, can you post an arm workout? And I'd like, just, sure, this is the workout that I did today. Here you go. And I realized that people really enjoyed me sharing my journey and also enjoyed the value of just like, oh, that girl did that workout today. I'll go do that today. And so I started sharing that stuff. And somewhere along the way, there was a man, a coach, that reached out to me and said, hey, I run a fitness coaching company online. I'd love to coach you.
Who was it?
Someone I don't talk to anymore.
Okay.
I honestly don't even know if he's still around.
Okay.
The company was called Fit Body Life.
Okay.
And I don't, as far as I know, the company doesn't exist anymore.
Sorry, we can move off of that.
Yeah, that's a whole nother topic.
I got you. There's plenty of people who I'd be happy to talk about.
Yeah.
In my past,
Right.
who probably would be less comfortable about me having the
Yeah.
conversation.
Look, I have no problem having a conversation. I just don't like to come on and badmouth anyone.
Right, I get it.
But essentially, this person reached out to me and said, hey, I'm an online fitness coach. I didn't even know that existed then. And he said, I see how hard you're trying to build muscle, and I see that you want to be a bodybuilder. Let me coach you for free. Like, I just want to coach you.
So you wanted to coach you on your own performance, not on being a coach.
Right.
Got
He just wanted to coach me on like, let's get you eating and building muscle if that's your goal. And so I was like, all right, like this guy wants to coach me for free. Sure. Why not? Sounds like a good deal for me. He's like, just tag me on Instagram and stuff. Like it was like the very beginning stages of like sponsorship, right? Before I even knew what that was. And so he coached me for a while, and eventually, and I mean, look, I did well. I put on muscle. And he really was the first person that opened up my eyes to tracking macros. And so as much as that business relationship didn't end up working out, I'm super grateful because he was the first person that really introduced to me, like, you don't need to just eat clean, right? Because I was so stuck in this mindset of, if it's not on my imaginary list in my head of good food and bad food, like if it's on the bad food list, I will get fat from it. And if it's on the good list, I will get skinny from it. And we obviously know now that that's not true, but there's still a ton of people in that mindset of like good foods make you skinny and bad foods make you fat. When we know now that like there's very much a massive caloric equation, of calories in, calories out that takes place here.
So did you get a nutrition education, like a formal nutrition education?
So I have. At the time, I did not yet. Like when I was working with him, no. I was in school for health and PE. And so I was taking nutrition classes and health classes and things like that. And so eventually he opened up my eyes to flexible dieting. And it wasn't even coined that at the time. But he was the person that was like, hey, I'm going to explain something to you. And I know it's going to sound super crazy at first, but let's say you need 2,000 calories a day to maintain your current weight. Whether you fill that 2,000 calories with cookies and brownies and donuts, or you fill that 2,000 calories with broccoli and egg whites and chicken breast, you would still weigh the same thing. And I was like, what? Like, I've been doing this wrong my entire life. Like, what? Like, it was stunning to me. It was jaw-dropping to me. And he's like, watch, let me show you, And so he gave me a set of numbers and macros and calories, and I would, fit a Pop-Tart into those numbers if I wanted to, or have a bowl of ice cream at the end of the night if I was short on carbs or fat, and I'd still magically maintain my weight, or I'd magically lose weight. And so that's when I was like, holy shit, it's not just about what you're eating, it's about how much you're eating. Like I didn't know that. And so eventually, maybe a year or two go by, I'm in a much better place mentally. And he's like, look, I want you to start coaching people under me. I'll mentor you. You've seen how I do things. I want you to be a coach, for my company. And so I did. And I started coaching people under him. And he like watched what I was doing first. I'd double check everything that I was giving them. And eventually I just started to see that I didn't like how things were being done. And I saw how low calorie he was putting people on. And when I would prescribe caloric amounts for people, he'd be like, no, that's too high. No, that's too high. And I started to realize that he was very results driven and not behavior driven.
Well, so what you're describing is what we talk to coaches about all the time. Learn how to do the job that somebody else has set out for you so well that you can then spot the areas where you feel like you could do the job better.
Right.
And then bring up that I feel like there's a better way for us to do this. And if that person doesn't share your vision, move on.
And that's literally what happened.
And frankly, that's the empathetic thing to do for both parties.
Yeah.
Because had you stayed, it would be to suck from the proverbial tit of the boss.
I didn't want to be a part of what I knew was actually happening. Once I saw the behind the scenes, I didn't like what was happening. I didn't like how business was being done. I didn't like how people were being taken care of. I didn't think people were being taken care of. I think.
And did you have your nutrition education at this point or not yet?
So at this time, I was still in school. In school at this time. Got like a personal training cert, but nothing specifically for nutrition at that time.
Okay, so I want to pause there for a second.
Yeah.
Because this sounds to me like at this point you're working as a teacher, yes?
No, I'm
not
still
yet.
in school.
So you're still in school. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is where you're getting introduced to the idea that you could potentially coach people online because someone's letting you do it for them.
Right.
Then you go become a teacher. And now at this point you've transitioned into I'm taking clients on my own.
Yeah. So eventually, long story short, I ended up leaving the business because I didn't like how things were being done. I didn't like how people were being taken care of. And I said, I'm going to go do this on my own. Like, I still want to help these people. I don't want to just drop these clients, but I don't want to do it through him anymore.
Of course.
I don't like how this is being done. And so I just started coaching people on my own and eventually filed for an S Corp and became legit and all that jazz while I'm in school. And so then when I finished undergrad, I was like, I want to stay in school. Like, I still have so much more to learn. I want to learn way more about nutrition. I want to learn way more about exercise. And that's when I stayed in school to do my master's in exercise science. And so at Delphi, I had this really cool program where they have in their Phys program, they also have an opportunity to do a graduate assistantship. Mm-hmm. So in that assistantship, they take 5 people from all over the country, interview a ton of people. They choose 5. And instead of that master's program being like a 2 to 3 year long program, you do it in 1 year, accelerated, tuition is paid for, but you're working as a grad assistant. So you're running all the labs, you're teaching undergrad classes. And so I interviewed for it. I got that position. So I literally finished undergrad in May for my dual bachelor's and started this master's in July.
Cool.
And then that was through the following August. So I wasn't teaching during then because it was full time. So I did 5 years straight of school back to back between my 3 degrees. And in March, so this program ended in August of 2015. In March of 2015, someone called one of my college professors, a athletic director from the high school that I then taught at or was going to be teaching at, called one of my professors and said, hey, I need someone. I need a health and PE teacher that also has like a background in exercise science, nutrition, personal training. And he's like, I got the perfect person. So I went and interviewed at this school in the city and I got the job in March for the following September school year. Right. Which was so cool because I knew that getting out of school, like I already had a job. So I kind of during that master's program, it was brutal. It was 13 months of 6 a.m. to 11 p.m.
Yeah, that's how you do 3 years in a year.
Yeah. Yeah. It was brutal. And it was 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. you were working as a grad assistant. And then 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. you had your grad classes. And then I lived an hour from the school.
Well, and so there's things I want people who are listening to be able to pick up on. And that is that you've been becoming who you are now the entire time.
Yeah.
I mean, since when you were a kid watching dad going to bodybuilding shows,
right.
You were getting your formative experiences. You were learning what it took to be successful. You saw dad train. You started playing competitive sports. You understood what it was like to be successful there. You went and learned the wrong way. You made mistakes with your own diet, with your own exercise. Yeah. You learned the right way. Then you learned the intricacies and the nuance of more right, less right, better for you.
Right.
And then you were like, okay, I'm going to go do this on my own.
Yeah.
And I imagine that when you went off and you were like, okay, I'm going to leave school, I'm going to leave teaching, I'm going to start this business, there was still a lot of like, I think I know what I'm doing.
So here's the thing. I was running my business on the side of teaching still. Yeah. So I got that job in 2015. I probably started coaching on the side in 2013, 2014, got the teaching job in 2015. We're now in 2020.
Right.
And I only left teaching. This is my first school year not teaching.
How does it feel?
It feels awesome. It feels great.
Was there a financial threshold that you felt like you needed to get to be able to say, I'm not going to teach anymore?
Yes and no. This past year was a very interesting growth year for me, health-wise, financially, mentally, emotionally. And so the money, honestly, was the least of my worries. And I feel really like blessed to say that because my husband's a financial advisor. So we do a good job of saving and we know, he knows how to budget everything out accordingly and he does well. And so I never had a fear of if I leave teaching, what if I don't make enough? Because truth be told, I am so passionate about the things that I do that I knew if I poured my heart and soul into something, it would be successful.
Well, and I wanted to make sure that you got to that because was it that you weren't concerned you wouldn't make enough because your husband makes enough? Or is it you weren't concerned you wouldn't make enough because you're like, no, I'm just going to do it?
I knew I would just own it and rock it. And so it wasn't even like my husband's, salary aside, I knew that I knew what I was making doing this on the side. And I said, right, if I'm doing this and this is my side hustle and I'm running myself into the ground because I'm up at 4 a.m, I go train before the school day. Then I walk to the gym, I walk home, get ready for school, go to school all day, get out of school. Then I'm doing client work all night and I'm lesson planning and grading all night. And then I'm getting in bed by 8 p.m. because I need to be up at 4 for the gym the next day. And it was just 16 hours of work. Like the second I woke up to the second I went to bed, and I was getting so burnt out. And I got to this point where I said, if I don't give up one, I'm going to be burnt out on both. And then I'm not going to want to do either. So something's got to give.
I'm with you. And I think that there's a misconception that people have if they come from a place where financial stability is less available. When somebody who has a second spouse, right? I mean, you had your husband was earning some money. I had my wife was earning some money when I decided I didn't want to do the clinic or the gym anymore. And I've had people say like, yeah, you say you were only making $30,000 a year as a gym owner, an event planner, an online business owner at the same time, working 17-hour days, but your wife was making a living.
Right.
So like it was easy for you to make the decision. And I think that what people misunderstand is
one, how expensive New York is.
Well, yeah, sure.
that money goes nowhere in New York.
There's that. But the other part of that is you don't want to depend on somebody else. Yeah. You want to contribute.
Right.
So it's like, yeah, sure, that was there.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like, I imagine for you it was similar. It wasn't just, oh yeah, well, if I fail, I'll just ride my husband's coattails.
Right. No. It was never like that. And truth be told, the thing in the back of my head was, God forbid, if by some chance this whole coaching full-time thing doesn't work out, I still have my teaching degree and I could go back to teaching. And
what's your worst case
easier
scenario?
said than done, right? Because teaching jobs are hard to find in New York. But my worst case scenario was going back to something that I loved anyway.
Well, and your worst case scenario was doing what you were currently doing.
Right.
And that's what so many people, I think, deal with. Like, they're like, what would happen if all this went to hell? Well, could you go back and get your job again?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, then you're living your worst case scenario.
And that was what was super eye-opening for me. Was one of my very close friends said, what's worst case scenario? And I was like, I'd have to go back to teaching. And I was like, and he said, would that be the worst thing ever? And I'm like, no, I love teaching. He's like, well, there you go. Like, so take the chance on yourself, right? If you're not even worried about the money because you think you're going to be successful and your worst case scenario is going back to something that you loved anyway, then it's a no-brainer.
So give me a 10,000 foot view of what somebody who's working with you is doing. What is the service that you give? Who is your client?
Sure. So my typical client is a lifestyle gym goer who is wanting to become more educated on nutrition and fitness. That way they have the knowledge and the confidence to do it on their own.
Perfect. Are you writing them workout plans? Are you writing them nutrition plans?
Both.
Or is it just, okay.
Both.
So what I find really interesting about that is I think that a lot of people who listen to this are coaches in gyms who are like, I do some nutrition coaching, but it's not on the side. Like it might be.
Yeah.
But they're through the gym, or they get someone who asked them and they're like, yeah, $75, I'll do it. I have a client right now who I'm working with. Her name is Hannah. She's a phenomenal nutrition coach for her clients. She over delivers for all of them. She undercharges what they pay her. Hannah, if you're listening, we've already discussed this. You're probably not doing that anymore, but she was when this came out.
Yeah.
And to make a long story short, many of them don't know how to take their nutrition education and turn it into a full-blown business. And part of the problem is they're charging $75, $100 a month for a client. And it's like, well, how many clients do you need?
Yeah.
And can you do a good job for them?
To make it up in volume. Yeah.
Yes. So how should they be thinking? Like, I want you to put yourself, if you can, into the mind of a coach who right now is coaching, let's say 15 to 20 hours of fitness per week in a group setting or one-on-one, and has 15 to 20 clients who work with them.
Which is a good amount.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Work with them online. And this translates to people who have 5 or who want to have 20. It doesn't matter. The perfect person right now for this is they have 15 clients.
Okay.
So they have this like, yeah, I can do this thought. But at the same time, they're not making enough money. They're burning themselves out. What is step one?
Oh, that's a good question.
I
think step one is taking inventory of what actually ignites your fire. Because if your heart and your passion is not in nutrition coaching, then you shouldn't be making it a full-time gig.
It is. Let's go to, they're like, no, Joelle, I want to be a nutrition coach. This fitness coaching thing is cool, but I want an online nutrition brand.
So then I would say to start from a backwards approach. Instead of saying, what am I going to give this person? I want you to think about when that client ends with you, what do you want them to know? What should they have gained by working with you? So let's say it's a 12-week program, a 3-month program. Forget even let's say you don't even have a client yet. What do you want that person to know from you? And then build out that program or that plan based on what you want their end results to be. What is that transformation? Is it a mental transformation? Is it an emotional transformation? Is it a physical transformation of getting their body to look a different way? Because you can't build out the program until you know what you want their transformation to be.
So you're essentially saying start with the end in mind.
Yeah.
And then figure out what must be true for that to become
work,
the end.
to happen. Yeah.
Okay.
So for me, I wanted them to feel educated and I wanted them to feel confident. And so if their body was a part of that, changing their body was a part of that, then that's what we're going to work on. If changing their mindset and their relationship with food and their relationship with exercise is a part of that, then that's something we're going to work on. But it's also one of those things that you also have to, there's a fine line of wanting to help someone, but also wanting to stay in your own lane. And you also, and this is something that I cannot say enough to coaches, is to stay in your scope of practice and not go beyond that.
And that depends on who the client is now, right? Because is that what you're getting at? I shouldn't have cut you off.
Yes. No,
it sounded like what you were describing was, if this is the outcome that you want, who is the person who wants that outcome?
Yes. You have to be able to accept that you are not always going to be able to be the person to get them there.
Dude, that is the number one thing. The first thing that we teach gyms who come on and work with us is a gym program in our Pro Path. That's what we call it when we teach gyms how to become the healthcare clinic of the future and make a lot of money doing it. Or a coach who comes on to work with us one-on-one. We're like, the number one thing you need to know is specifically what problem you solve.
Yep.
Number 2,
100%.
Through what process do you solve that problem? Mm-hmm. Number 3, why are you uniquely fit to solve it? And number 4, who has that problem? Mm. And if you know those 4 things, when somebody comes in who doesn't fit them,
your ideal client. Yeah.
Yes. And if someone doesn't fit your ideal client, what do you do?
I tell them. I usually will either give them resources of people to refer out. Sometimes I double check with another coach ahead of time, like, hey, I have this person. They have a thyroid issue, or they have major physical therapy issues from prior injuries, or, you have to know to refer out. And so sometimes I'll go directly to that coach and say, hey, I have someone that X, Y, and Z. Is this someone you'd want to take? I'll, give them your name and number. But first and foremost, I'm upfront with that person and say, look, this is what you will get from me. This is what you will not get from me. So if you're looking for someone to help you with X, Y, and Z, I can do that. But if you're looking for A, B, and C, let me refer you to this person, because I want you to get the help you need. And I'm happy to give away business if it's beyond my scope of practice, because I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I can wear every single hat.
Well, when you say beyond, I want to make sure they understand what you mean. It's not that it's too advanced for you.
No.
It's that it's not the kind of client you want to help.
Right.
So if someone came to you, for example, I imagine it was like, look, I want to pitch for the Seattle Mariners, and I need to pack on 20 pounds of muscle and this amount of time. It might be like, look, dude, this is not the fit.
I could do it, but am I the best person for it for you? Probably not.
And so someone who's new starting that business out, how do you what's the thought process of, you're telling me I need to make money, I need to charge more, and you're telling me I should send that money out to somebody else. How do those things reconcile? Because that's the hard thing. I see it all the time. We teach coaches in the very beginning in our pro path, pick the clients who you could help right now with the skills you already have without learning anything new. Determine what's frustrating them about their problem, and then go talk to them about it. And when they come back with their list, I'm like, what are their problems? And oftentimes, at least half of that list is somebody who's dealing with aches and pains.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what is step 3 for helping somebody with aches and pains? Like, I have no idea. I'm like, do not take that client. You're not ready for that client yet. Get 5 more who you already can help today.
Yes.
So what's the mindset for you of, Joelle, I need to make more money. I can't send these clients away.
I think there is a big difference between taking someone that you're not ready for and taking someone that's just not your ideal client. Mm-hmm. And so I don't ever recommend taking someone that you are not advanced enough for. But I definitely think that starting out, for me personally, I did have to work with people that were not my ideal client until I became more choosy and more successful and more advanced in my practices. I think starting out, I did have clients that were not necessarily my ideal person. And look, I'm no business coach, so I am sure that a business coach would maybe give some different advice here. But starting out, I just wanted the experience of working with anyone. And so I put in the time and the energy and the effort to help that person as much as I could, even if they weren't my exact ideal client. And then as my business grew and as I became more advanced, I was also able to really figure out who my ideal client was. And then I was able to get a lot more choosy about who I did choose to work with.
So I think that the big thing you nailed there was there are 2 schools of thought on this, and I've heard both. One school is from day one, identify exactly who you want to work with and don't take anybody else.
Yeah, I disagree.
School 2 is say yes to everybody, because you don't know who you're going to like helping yet.
How do you know who your ideal client is?
Right.
Just like how I mentioned the freshmen and the seniors, right? I thought I would hate those seniors, love the freshmen. And it was the total opposite, because until you start working with a certain person or demographic or whatever else, you don't really know what your niche is or your specialty is or what really lights your fire the most.
Are you familiar with Dr. Andy Galpin?
No.
Okay, that's okay. You would probably like his Instagram page and his whatever other social medias he's on. But he was a guest on the podcast like a year and a half, 2 years ago. Wow, it was a while ago. And he was talking about too many new coaches are saying no too often because the advice from the top is say no all the time. Like, you need to learn how to say no. Right. And he's like, the reason why I got my job as whatever he is, bigwig at Cal State Fullerton in like his 30s, is because I said yes to working at a health fair in the rain, taking random people's blood pressure, even though I had no interest in taking random people's blood pressure in the rain at a health fair. And the moral of the story is, if you don't know, like if right now you're like, I don't think I would like working with that kind of person, but you never have, it's okay to take them and be honest that, look, I'm going to have to learn with you a little bit.
Right.
And if that's okay with you, I would love the challenge, and I will work as hard as I need to work to learn what I need to learn to help you the way you need to be helped.
And the client usually really respects that.
The honesty.
Yeah.
Right. But the mistake is when you've been in business for a year, 2, 3, 4, and you're like, whether you want to be an Olympic athlete or you're a grandma who just wants to be able to get off the couch, I can help you. It's like, yeah, you can.
But do you need you? Yeah. Right. Do you need to? Yeah. Exactly. And that's where it's a different story. Now I've had this business 6 or 7 years, and I do things a lot differently than I did when I first started out, as we all should. I'm sure that the way you do business is different than it was 5 years ago.
Exactly the same, right? Is Cleary over there?
You handle people differently and you learn new things. I mean, especially in a field where, health and fitness, nutrition and exercise science, there are always new developments happening. So as soon as something is new or a new study comes out, like, you have to adapt and you have to grow with that. And so if you're doing the same thing as you were doing 10 years ago or even 5 years ago, like, you're doing your client a disservice.
So we recently had our first, we call it cohort 1 workshop 2. So ProPath 1.2, which means the group that came out, the first group that ever came out for their second of 4 workshops.
Gotcha.
Recently. And one of the guys in attendance was like, hey, so the pricing that you went over is different than the pricing that we talked about last time. And I said, last time when? And he's like, not at the last workshop, when you and I last spoke. And I was like, oh, how long ago was that? Remind me. He's like, a month ago. I'm like, oh yeah, got it. This is better. Do this. And he was just like, yeah, I was wrong a month ago. And I'm not going to wait a year to tell you something new because I made a mistake a month ago. Yeah. This is better now. That was the best I knew then. Yeah. This is better now. So my question for you that comes from all of this is, I don't know much about your business infrastructure, but it's from the outside looking in, it looks like it's you.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's all me.
So one of the things that we work with entrepreneurs on is thinking about the idea of how much of your time and energy is spent on vision, how much of your time and energy is spent on maintenance, and how much of your time and energy is spent on problem solving. Yeah. And that the rate of your business is going to grow based on how fast you can do the maintenance work, how effectively you can do the problem solving, and how abundantly you can do the vision.
Yeah.
How do you divide up your energy?
By spreading myself too thin.
Deal.
So funny that you ask. I'm actually in the process right now of hiring my first assistant coach.
Okay. Does this person already know that they're being hired, or are you looking?
Both. They already know they're being hired, but that won't be the last of my hirees.
Got it. And they're probably probationary.
Yes. So it probably won't be like official till March, so I'm not dropping any names yet. But I basically literally put on Instagram, hey, I'm going to need an assistant coach. This is what I'm looking for. I want someone with experience. I want someone X, Y, and Z. And send a resume to this email address. And I got a ton. And it was actually really, really cool and really humbling because I was like, oh my God, like, people want to work with me. This is so cool. So that was like a really exciting process. And then there's that battle of like, you feel bad telling people no, you feel bad rejecting people, but you want to choose the right person. And there were a lot of people that were like, I've never coached before, but I want to be a coach and I think it'd be really cool to learn under you. And I'm like, I love that and I appreciate that so much, but I don't have time to train a coach on how to be a coach.
So you're looking for, so right now what you're looking for is someone who's going to come in
and do exactly what I do.
Coaching, and you just want to, so what is it that you're going to tweak on them? Or is there anything you're going to tweak?
About what they do?
Yeah.
So essentially, the first person that I have found already has a health and fitness coaching company, and she's basically willing to absolve her company to come work for me. Damn. Which again, like, really freaking cool because, like, whoa, that person and her, what she said to me was, I have such, like, the vision that you have for your company is the vision that I have of your company, and so I see your company doing really, really well and you being really successful. And I know that you won't let it fail. And I want to be a part of that with you.
Some people are better off as number 2s than number 1s. Yeah. And a really good expression that I like.
That's okay.
No, it's great.
You don't have to be number 1.
My number 2 is a rock star.
Right.
And he would be the first person to tell you, I had no interest in being number 1, man.
Yeah.
And frankly, I have no interest in being number 2.
And that was basically her thing was, right. And I love being number 1. And she was basically like, look, I'm number 1 and it's a lot of work. Like I'd kind of rather just be number 2 and have someone else in charge and whatnot, but still get to do what I love. And so we run very, very similar coaching practices in terms of nutrition and exercise and check-ins and things like that. And so how do I do it all? Well, I've done it all myself for years and years. And so part of leaving teaching was, hey, I knew what I could. I knew I was maxed out on time during my school year with, I couldn't take more than 5-10 clients because I was swamped. Teaching is one of those jobs that like, it doesn't end when the bell rings. No. Like now you're grading, now you're lesson planning, now you're making phone calls home, you're sending
now you're in Oriental
letters
training,
to parents,
looking for the best product.
Right. Yeah. Oh God, Oriental trading, yeah. So, or those Gopher.
And by the way, if you don't know, that was not a racist. It's a magazine.
That was a magazine where you get cheap all kinds knickknacks,
of trinkets,
balls,
stuff,
everything. Yeah. So I knew that through that teaching school year, I was maxed out on time. And I knew that if I wanted to take more clients and I wanted to help more people, I needed to leave teaching. And so I did. And now I've gotten to the point, mind you, so school let out in June where, 7-8 months that I'm all in, right? On
we're
my
recording
business.
this at the end of January.
Right. So we're about 7 or 8 months all in, quote unquote, on me doing my business on my own. And after about the 5-month mark, I was like, okay, I'm like maxed out again. And when you realize that you are the only thing stopping you from...
You are the bottleneck.
Yeah. When you realize you're the only thing stopping you from getting better or growing or being even more successful, you're like, well, now what? Like I've hit my max here. Like I hit my max teaching. Now I get out of teaching and I max out my business again 6 months in. And I'm like, well, if I want to keep moving up, then like I gotta let go of my type A anal, I want to do it all myself thing. And I got to learn how to delegate because if I don't, I'm going to be limiting my own success.
Done that. Still working on it.
Yep.
What I will tell you, if it's any, I don't know, prize for you. It's not a consolation. It's a congratulations. Is just prepare for the Wild West.
Yeah.
Like you're going to do a bunch of...
It's a whole other ballgame when you start hiring.
Yeah, exactly. Because you go from being the person who has to deliver service to being the person who has to facilitate the delivery of service.
Yeah.
It's a totally different skill set.
Yeah.
I always thought like, I'll just hire someone and tell them to do what I did.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't work that way.
Not quite like that.
Doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
So I wish you the best of thick skin.
Yeah, thank you.
You're gonna need it, and you're gonna.
Hey, we're New Yorkers. We have pretty thick skin.
Yes. Well, and that's why you gotta be careful who you hire.
Yeah.
Because if they're not a New Yorker,
more than anything, it's a trust thing. It's like how do I know I'm not gonna get burned?
You
right?
Yeah.
I mean, just anytime I think you hire or especially that first hire, I feel like the first hire is probably the hardest because you're like letting someone into this baby that you've built for so many years.
It's the hardest until you let that person hire. Then that's the hardest because you're like, wait a minute. Did I teach you how to hire the right person?
Yeah.
Are you going to develop them properly?
Right. Right. Yeah.
So,
Good advice.
It's not
good advice.
It's it's experience, and we'll see it.
Yeah. I get that.
The next podcast we'll talk about how it's been managing a staff member.
Yeah. I think that I'll listen to that one.
Or
maybe I'll be recording that one with you.
Yeah, we'll be talking about it.
Yeah, definitely. So just long story short, I mean, you said, how do you manage it all? I did for a really long time. It was just a matter of massive time management. Mm-hmm. It was, you had to master the shit out of your own schedule. From 4 a.m. to 5:30 a.m. I'm working out. From 5:30 a.m. to 6:30 a.m. I'm home. I'm showering. I'm eating. I'm walking to school. 7 a.m. to 3, I'm at school. 3 to this, I'm there. This time to this time, I'm grading. This time to this time, I'm coaching. And the biggest, I will always say this, the biggest key to stress management is time management. And so if you can better manage your time, you can better manage your stress, because the things we stress about are like, oh my God, there's not enough hours in the day. I don't have enough time to get this done, right? 99% of the things we stress about are like, I have too much on my plate. Mm-hmm. But if you can better manage that time, you'll better manage your stress. So for me, being able to quote unquote do it all was just being able to manage my time And now that my time is maxed out, that's when I'm like, okay, now I need to hire someone.
And I think that the valuable lesson there that people need to be able to take home is you're going to have to do more than you should be doing for as long as you can do that.
Yep.
And then you have to resign to the fact that the amount of money that you're making from the extra work that you're doing isn't actually yours.
Yeah.
You're hiring somebody else with some of the money that you were making so that you can make more in time and do less or do different is what I should really say. But
but your time can be better well spent.
Yeah. That's the hard part for people. They go from like, but Dr. Sean, I'm making $100,000 a year. I'm making $75,000 a year now. I don't want to give up 30 or 40 of it to somebody else. Like you're not, you're parking it.
And perfect example. I know we're like starting to wrap up here, so I'll just give you one quick example. I just launched a new program that is a nutrition and fitness program that basically gets rid of your need to have me as a coach, which some people are like, well, why would you do that? And I'm like, because I want people to be able to do this on their own without having to hire a one-on-one coach. And so I just put out this program and I stupidly designed the entire thing myself because like really no other reason, the graphic design. Yeah. Like I built out a 150-page document myself and designed it myself.
For you for next time.
I know tons. I was just stupid. And really it kind of just happened. Like I started working on it and I started writing up the raw material and then I just started putting it into a template to like see what it would look like and how it would lay out. And sure enough, I'm 2 months into it and I'm like, oh my God, this is so much work. Like, why did I not delegate? Like this would have been the perfect opportunity to outsource. And I didn't. And as a result, I couldn't take on new clients for 8 weeks. I was still servicing my current clients, so I still had money coming in. But I didn't take on new people for 8 weeks because I was so elbow deep into it at that time that I was like, oh, I'm halfway through this now. Now I'm not giving it to someone else.
I can't teach somebody else how to go through my training.
Right. So you live and you learn, but I ended up doing that whole thing myself. And so I had said to one of my friends who was like, why did you do it? I'm like, I really like the design part. Like I like doing the digital design and the graphic stuff. And they're like, just because you like it doesn't mean it's the best use of your time. True. And so now you just gave up 8 weeks worth of what could have been bringing on new clients because your ego got the best of you and you wanted to do that yourself. Mm-hmm. You wanted to do that yourself when you could have paid someone whatever, $500 to do it. You would have made that back in 2 sales or whatever. And there you go. And now you just lost those 8 weeks of clients. So don't be afraid to delegate. Don't be afraid to ask for help when you need it. And don't be a hero. Like I don't get an extra freaking award because I designed that thing myself. People aren't paying extra because I designed it myself and didn't outsource it. Like it doesn't make a difference.
And when you have to edit it and rebuild it.
Oh my gosh.
It should probably be somebody else.
Yeah. So never again will I do that. I will outsource from now on. It was a lesson learned. Mm-hmm. But a lesson that you have to learn, on your own.
Something to think about for you as you go forward. All of our staff members come through our education platform. They have to take our education first. They have to pay for it.
Yep.
And there's no guarantee of hire thereafter. So if you find yourself with some free time, maybe building the course to get somebody the education that they need to work for you so that they can go start their own business if they want. And then you just grab the rock stars and pull them in.
Right. That's a good idea.
Joelle, where can people find you if they want to get more out of you?
Sure. So biggest platform I'm on is Instagram. My handle is Joelle Samantha. So just Joelle. Samantha. I figured people know how to spell that one.
We'll make sure we get in the show notes.
Yeah, my website is joellesamantha.com, but you could find me most on Instagram, and I would absolutely love if you guys give this a listen. Please, please, please shoot me a message on Instagram. I am always in my inbox. I answer all my DMs. So please, if you listen to this, if it resonated with you at all, let me know. I'd love to connect with you. And thanks for listening.
Thanks for coming on.
Cool.
All right, that's going to be a wrap for this episode of the Active Life Podcast. And guys, remember, if you are looking to enhance your fitness business, if you're sitting there thinking, man, I would love to be able to go on vacations. I would love to be able to take 2 weeks off and not have my business fall apart. And most importantly, if you want to be a part of the movement that we are creating, facilitating, and seeing come to life, which is coaches and gyms becoming the healthcare clinic of the future, helping people who've gotten hurt working out, helping people who've been told they have to work out around that, having people be told they're too old to do that, find new hobbies. If hearing things like that for your clients is frustrating for you and you want to learn the skills to solve those problems and also get paid very well to do it, head to activelifeprofessional.com and let's get talking. Till then, turn pro.